Hi, guys. It's your boy, Johnny. Oh, it's so nice to be on Canary Cry Radio. Oh, listen to the birds. Oh, that's so nice. I could cry tears of joy, just like Miss America. Oh, if only I was dressed just like her.
What's up, hey guys? What's up, man? Oh, it's such an honor to be on Canary Cry Radio.
Wow, I think that's got to be one of the best intros I think that we've had
It's
so
going to be
far.
legendary.
All right. Oh, yeah, buddy.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, welcome to Canary Cry Radio. We've got a very special guest today. My name's Basil.
And I'm Gonz, and I'm not allowed to jump into it, so I'm going to introduce the man formerly known as Johnny the Longshoreman. And now he's the host of The Iron Show. It's Johnny Iron.
Oh, yeah, buddy.
What's up?
What's up? What's up? Oh, yeah. All right. Yes. Oh, it's such an honor to be here. You know, you guys, man, I've been listening to some Canary Cry Radio here since the beginning, you know. I remember the first time I ever heard it. I was like searching, you know, for some podcasts, you know, because I listen to a lot of podcasts, you know. There's a lot of guys that say, you know, dude, man, I never have time to listen to my show. And I'm like, yeah, that's why you sound just as lousy as you did the first episode I ever heard. But I listen to my own show and I listen to everybody else's show, you know, too. But
right.
I was like, man, I was hurting for a new podcast that was really cool. And I see this CCR and I'm like, what is this? Creedence Clearwater Revival or something? It's like, well, I'll check it out, man. When it busts in with the Proto-Evangelion, you know, I was like, oh, whoa, you got like the firefighter.org Bible King James dude busting in, you know, because thou hast done this, cursed be thy. I was like, oh man, this is cool.
Well, I'm glad that that you were attracted to our intros there. I mean, you yourself, you have your own podcast, and you've also got an equally as exciting intro, I would say. Every single time.
I would say it's epic.
It's epic. It just, you know, gets you pumped. And I'm just so happy that we got to have a taste of that today on Canary Cry Radio. So if you guys like that and want more, make sure to check out The Iron Show with Johnny Iron.
Oh, yeah, ironshow.com. Available on iTunes. Could do like my buddy Pastor Lynn Marzulli. He's like, says it 3 times. Ironshow.com, ironshow.com. That's ironshow.com.
3 times the charm.
3rd time's a charm. That sinks in, you know. Guys, I'm a host. I'm not a guest, but we could go off on all kinds of weird tangents, though, because, you know, Johnny has all kinds of, like, weird thoughts buzzing around, cranking wheels in his head and stuff.
I think that was going to be, like, the cool thing about this show is, like, we have nothing planned at all. And well, you want to tell us a little bit about like your journey? And I'm hearing like a lot of myself feeding back for something. Like I hear an echo of me. But anyway, yeah, just tell us about your journey. Like how did you come to know God? How did you get to the point where you're like into all this stuff and like, you know, you don't have to go super long. Just a little thing about Johnny, little life story of Johnny.
Oh, cool. The history of Johnny. I love to talk about myself. No, I was a singer in a band called Avant Garde. We were famous on the West Coast. I used to sign people's autographs all the time. I'd be walking through the streets, you know, in Portland and stuff. And I'm up here in Salem, Oregon, which is a little bit south of Portland, Oregon right now. We're on the West Coast, buddy. The West is the best.
Yeah, that actually doesn't happen a lot. We don't have a lot of guests from the West Coast, so it's nice to be able to interview you or have you on the show at a reasonable hour.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not like 3:30 in the morning in London and you're like, hello. So, but I was a singer in a band called Avant Garde, and I came to Jesus because God pretty much. I was a hardcore atheist, hardcore partier, and God really pretty much just pretty much tore my life up so that I could come to Him. Really is the way I see it now. Of course, you never see it when you're there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Finally, I just through the series of all that, I ended up somehow in a group where these dudes were studying Aleister Crowley and starting to get some seances going, and I think I picked up a demon in there because I wasn't into Aleister Crowley, but I hung out with this group of dudes, these witches, and they were did a bunch of seances and stuff, and it's like I must have picked up a demon or something there, because there was this thing whispering in my ear, I mean, not people hear voices in their head,
Right.
This was like an audible whisper, with the wind blowing on my earlobe. It's like, Johnny. I was freaking out, scared. This dude.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, it was bad, man. And it's there was this dude, he was a snake bite Pentecostal holy roller dude, and name was Louis, and I couldn't stand the guy, but I knew that his particular brand of Christian, I knew that he believed in demons. Those guys, I knew that those guys believed in the supernatural. They weren't walking into a Lutheran church where everybody's falling asleep and stuff. So I went up to Louis. I said, "Look, I got demons whispering in my ear, blowing on my earlobe and stuff." And he's like, "Oh, we need to get you into the church, my friend." And this was on an April morning in 1985 in a snake bite holy roller Pentecostal church. Dudes foaming at the mouth, speaking in tongues, rolling around on the floor, twitching in spasms and stuff. They led me through the sinner's prayer on that altar of this snake bite Pentecostal church in 1985.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
Wow. That is intense, man.
And I'm going to tell you what, it was, people, there's a lot of people who live really wild lives, and what they'll do is they'll go through a sinner's prayer and a salvation experience, and they will instantly be transformed into this angel, Right. And I know that happens. I know it happens all the time. But there's guys like Johnny where it take you 25 years of God constantly taking you out to the woodshed, and
right.
And also showing you mercy and stuff. But I'm going to tell you what, man, when I got up from that sinner's prayer on that April morning in 1985, man, my eyes were instantly opened. I mean, I saw the world for what it was. I mean, I understood, all of a sudden, instantly, I understood, what sin was and what forgiveness was and why I needed Jesus. And just, you could never sit there and explain any of that because it's a supernatural, spiritual thing that makes no sense to the unbeliever. But to the believer, there's that instant transformation in your spirit.
Yeah, totally. I can totally relate to, not the whole Pentecostal thing, but just as far as understanding that supernatural element of having the eyes to see just the world just totally changes. It's just really, it's a really bizarre thing. And I remember thinking I'm after I had my experience of being saved, it was my mind would go back and forth of wait a minute. I would recognize oh wait, that's how I used to think, and it was just really weird for, a few years of jumping back and forth and having moments of wait a minute, this is new, or, this is not what I should be thinking or whatever. It's just more aware of what, you're thinking of, or what you're just your surroundings and the world in general, you know. So I can totally relate.
Okay, so Johnny, lead singer of Avant-Garde, got into Aleister Crowley, got some whispers from a demon, had a experience on the floor of a church, and now, then what? How do you get from there to starting the Iron Show?
Yeah, fast forward 25. No, it's late here. Fast forward like 20. The Iron Show's just been in your ear for 3 years now plus. So fast forward about 25 years, I guess. We'll just say that and figure it out later. I am coming down off a massive dose of amphetamines.
All right. Sounds like we missed a lot in that 20 years.
Well, you know, there's guys, you know, like I say, that they have this instant transformation, you know, and it's just instant, and they just turn into an angel. And there are some people that, you know, it takes years before they become a halfway decent Christian, somebody that you could spot on the street and say, you know, he seems like a Christian to me, you know. Mm-hmm. So I went through some partying times, you know, on and off, you know, all through those 25 years. And so, and I was in and out of a lot of other bands and stuff. And also, then of course I, you know, was married in 87, raised a family. And so anyway, the families, the kids moved off, you know, and, you know, the wife is camped out, you know, somewhere else, and Johnny's come down off this massive dose of amphetamines. And there is two things, you know, I don't know if you guys ever come off massive doses of amphetamine.
That's been an experience I've been able to avoid in my lifetime. I don't know about Gonz.
No, I mean, there's been experiences, but not particularly with.
Yeah, we've managed to dodge that particular bullet.
Good for you guys, man. I tell you, man. Because, you know, there are times when, like, you can say, well, like, you know what you're talking about, you know, because you haven't experienced it. Well, I'm here to tell you that experiencing like all that kind of stuff, I don't think it gives you any net benefit. I really don't. I mean, but anyway,
don't do drugs, kids.
Right. It's not going to help you understand anything, really. I mean, anyway, yeah, me and Dr. Future had a long conversation about that one night. But anyway, fast forward to me coming down off this massive dose of amphetamine. What happens as you're coming down off that stuff is this terrible emptiness starts kicking in. And there's nothing that sounds good. I mean, nothing. There is nothing. You know, you could be rich and have all these waiters offering you different things, and you'd be like, nah, no thanks. Yeah, yuck. Anyway, I'm searching through my iPod trying to find anything to listen to. And man, I got like everything in my iPod. Nothing sounds good. There's like two things that I could listen to, and this is really weird. One of them was a song that was written and recorded by a friend of mine that was written about another friend of mine whose hobby was robbing gas stations. He actually did it for a hobby, for fun. It wasn't like for money, because he really loved it.
Of course he did. Because I've heard that's really fun, by the way. I've had a couple friends try to get me into their gas station robbing social clubs, and it's so I mean, what could is that a good idea or a bad idea?
They're like, you gotta get into this, Basil, man. It's the bomb. Oh, Gonz, man, come on, grab that gun, let's go. That was his hobby, because he just loved it. He got away with it for like 3-4 years, because he would always give the gas station attendant half the money when he's done, you know. And so the gas station attendant would lie to the cops, you know, and he'd, promise to come back and do it again someday. And so he got away with it until he ran into the attendant who happened to be the owner of the gas station.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that was the bust. But anyway, Eddie had written a song about Mike, who, and the name of who actually what happened was when he got busted, he was sent to McNeil Island Prison, which is like Alcatraz, except it's up in the Puget Sound off the coast of Washington. It's an island prison, and him and two buddies had it took them a year. They had constructed this raft one piece at a time, and they had they'd gotten that thing together.
Whoa! Are we talking about Alcatraz the movie here? Or is this a real thing?
No, this is okay. In my iPod, there's this song written by Eddie Nixon.
Okay,
which was written by another friend of ours who was his cousin. And I'm talking about his cousin loved to rob gas stations.
They actually built a raft.
Yeah, he got sent to McNeil Island Prison and it took him a year, but they one piece at a time. Yeah, like a movie or something. I know it sounds like a movie script, huh? No, it's true. And they had built this raft, so on a stormy night, they said they both escaped, got down to the rocks and launched off on this raft. They got out there a couple miles, and the seas just got too much, for the two guys. Mike, he was like nothing but guts, but they jumped for it and swam back to McNeil Island, but he kept going. Anyway, his body washed up on the shore about a month later, and the fish had eaten his eyeballs out and everything. But the song was called "Total Conviction," and it was about. The guy's name was Mike Bennett, who the song was about.
My gosh.
Yeah, Eddie wrote this. It's a killer song. And so Eddie writes this song about his cousin Mike, who I grew up with too. The name of the song is Total Conviction. Anyway, his cousin's name is Mike Bennett. And the only other thing I could listen to was this weird podcast I had downloaded earlier, that week called Future Quake. And the host's name was Mike Bennett. Which is like, what is that? Synchronicity? Some weird thing?
Yeah.
So it was Future Quake 64. And I'd listened to Total Conviction about 500 times. And so I turned it over to Future Quake 64. I sat in a corner for 3 days listening to Future Quake 64 with Dr. Future and Peter Goodgame.
Wow.
The recordings of the identity of the Antichrist. And, it was at that moment, I was like, when I came out of that, it goes on and on. I mean, it would take up the whole podcast to tell you everything about that. But what had happened is that had really got hold of me and led me back towards Jesus again to a halfway decent relationship with him, away from the partying. And I thought, if I could reach out to one person, if I could have my own podcast and reach out to one person that the way that Dr. Future and Peter Goodgame had reached out to me that night, then everything would be worth it. All the efforts would be worth it if I could just reach one person. So the Iron Show was born a few months later out of that conviction, out of that trying to duplicate what they had done for me. I wanted to duplicate that to reach somebody else. So the Iron Show really, it's actually designed for somebody coming down off a massive dose of amphetamine.
And I can see that. And I can see that in every creative choice that you've made on the show, Johnny. And let me just tell you that.
All right.
I was listening to Iron Show 41, your last episode, and you had Matthew Miller, and some of the stuff he was talking about was like blowing my mind. I mean, I had heard a little bit about some of that stuff, but it was the first time to actually confirm some of the ideas that I've, for example, I'm just going to jump into it to see what you understand about this, Johnny, and maybe you can explain it better than I can, but
good luck.
The 3-strand DNA thing. I have, a few years ago, not a few, probably 2.5 years ago, when I was trying to figure out what the heck was going on with the whole New Age movement and, just being really confused about like, wait a minute, I'm a Christian, but all these guys that are actually talking about conspiracies and UFOs and all this stuff, they're all New Agers, and they're all talking about some crazy stuff about, DNA upgrade and all this stuff. Well, I often heard about the 3-strand DNA, like the third strand coming or whatever. And when I started working at the church, I started doing a lot of weddings as a tech guy for weddings. And one of the ceremonies that I hadn't known about before was the God's Knot thing, where they get, the man gets a strand, a woman gets a strand, and then the third strand represents God, And so they do that ritual. And I remember thinking like, whoa, that, it reminded me of the 3-strand DNA, but I didn't really think there was anything to it. But then here's Matthew Miller describing that stuff. And it was, I don't know, it was just kind of blowing my mind. But can you kind of explain that, or is that left for Matthew Miller to do?
Yeah, that stuff, man, that's like Matthew Miller's territory. All I could do is just sort of maybe roughly simplify some of the stuff he's talking about. He's saying that the DNA on the, like, if you looked at it like face on, you would have like a left side, which wouldn't really be its left side. But if you're looking at it face on, for argument's sake, you would have a left side and a right side, and then you'd have these rungs in between,
right?
These connecting chains of, and so he was just saying that when you become, okay, now here's another thing that I'm going to get into maybe if I get a chance. Quote unquote born again. Now that's a little thing I have that's very unpopular with me. But anyway, for argument's sake, let's say when you become born again, that God comes in and he strengthens the bond between the left and the right side. It reinforces the connects, the rungs of the ladder. And so that when you are faced with something like alcoholism or drug abuse or some kind of sexual sin, that he now has God has reinforced the center chains, the rungs of that ladder, of that DNA ladder, rope ladder, so that you can you have the actual power down to your DNA level to resist the temptations of the devil and the flesh and the world. Really, if you look at what John said, we wrestle against 3 things, not just the devil. We wrestle against the world, we wrestle against the flesh, and we wrestle against the devil. We've got 3 things. Sometimes I remember my snake bite Pentecostal Louie back in the 80s telling me that, I'm thinking the devil's after doing, playing a trick on me for this. The devil's trying to get me to do that. And he told me, you don't need the devil. Your flesh is plenty wicked, all by itself.
Yeah, right.
Especially Johnny, So, but anyway, that's Matthew Miller's, thing in a nutshell, and he goes really deep into it. Matthew Miller, we just did a session one-on-one, which has not been released yet. It's going to be a 2-part Iron Show, and I got one-on-one with him. The Iron Show 41 was just kind of a taste. I just captured some session, with him in a tiny chat session, and but this is a one-on-one. This new thing we're doing is a one-on-one, so he's going to go in there and explain that stuff, in a lot more detail, and then we go through Isaiah. We go through Isaiah 24, which is kind of like Matthew chapter 24. If you've ever read Isaiah 24, it's kind of details the end of the world, all the mountains moving from their place, right. All that stuff that basically, the earth is clean, dissolved, swept away like a cottage, total day of the Lord stuff. Right. We take that apart verse by verse, and he guides us through that. And it's pretty much mind blowing. Matthew Miller, I don't know, man, that guy's like a genius or something.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I'll have to catch that one.
We were on a show together. We did a show called Brass and Iron. We had done a couple shows, and we were also on a show called Third Watch with Dory Lynn Etheridge, myself, Brian Ingram, Matthew Miller. That ran for about half a year, and then I was on End Time Tribune with him a few times. But what had happened is that he had a guy with him that was really going legalistic, and the group started looking like they were going too legalistic. And what I had done was I had all these people coming to me saying, Johnny, you don't preach this stuff on the Iron Show. What's going on? Have you converted? Am I going to hell? Because I just messed up like yesterday. So what am I going to have to do? Am I going to hell? And all these people kept asking me that. And I had to break away from the group. So that's one thing Matthew Miller and me are in contention about. I'm the once saved, always saved crowd. Definitely firmly planted in that.
Right.
And he's not. And actually, in the middle of that Iron Show, we get into a little mini battle on that and agree to disagree. But that was the end of all my, extra Iron Show shows. I went back to the Iron Show at that point. That was a year ago. And so one thing you have to, like, when you align yourself with somebody very deeply, you have to check their doctrine, make sure, people can have a lot of weird doctrine. That's fine. But you get down to the salvation issues, then you got to kind of check yourself before you wreck yourself. That's my opinion. You got to watch out.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. And I mean, for those of you who aren't aware, which none of you will be, Johnny Iron was actually one of the first guys who kind of encouraged us to keep going and gave us some pointers and things like that. So, we owe a lot to Johnny Iron and how we got started off and kept, motivated with the whole thing. So you've been hosting a lot of shows, or you've kind of been in the biz for a while, and I mean, what else do you guys say? You got some interesting stories or anything? I mean, I know even in the short time that we've had our show, I mean, you get all sorts of people emailing you, and people who are, you get your edification and your motivation, and then there are some people who just aren't as stoked.
Yeah, my co-host Rick, the original co-host of the Iron Show, we had, we were both were trading Rush, videos back and forth and stuff, and before we had started the Iron Show, and trading back and forth jokes and stuff, and we hit it off just like a house of fire, and so we thought, wow, we should do the show together, and so here we go. We get into show one and realize that we are completely different. I'm a futurist. I believe that the end times are, if not here now, are soon to happen, or will happen in the future. Rick is a preterist. Preterists, for those who don't know, believe that Revelation, the book of Revelation, was fulfilled around AD 70. When Titus entered the temple and took over Jerusalem. Yes.
I have not spent my time reading up on that.
Really? You don't know about preterism?
Well, I know there's a guy that I know that the church that Basil and I work at, that is, he claims that if he has an opportunity to sit down with you through the book of Revelation, that we will be convinced that preterism is true. So, I mean, that's his claim.
Oh yeah, they're serious about it. There are, I guess, Basil, I guess you don't know, there's a lot of preterists out there, and I'll tell you what, most of them are not nice people. I don't remember ever meeting a nice preterist. I don't know. Maybe that's because they have nothing to look forward to, or
yeah, I'm just trying to think of what sort of existence that would mean for you as a Christian.
Well, number one, you have, in my mind, and a lot of the futurist minds, I guess, I mean, you have a lot of issues where you want to ask him, like, well, so are we in like the millennial reign then? Because,
Right.
And where was Jesus? Did we miss him? Because, because I'm going to really be bummed out if we miss the second coming. I mean, and so when you nail him down on that, a lot of preterists will say, well, I'm a partial preterist. I believe that Revelations was all fulfilled except for a little couple bits at the end. And you're like, oh, okay. Most preterists are what you would call a partial preterist. So, I mean, they're not that strange to a futurist. But, a lot of another question would be, like I said before, are we in the millennial reign? Well, they might just kind of shrug their shoulders. And then you think about, wait a minute, the millennial reign is 1,000 years of Christ reigning. And wait a minute, it's been 2,000 years since you say these prophecies were fulfilled around AD 70. Well, at least almost 2,000 years. We got about, 60 years to go before it's a full 2,000. So you would say, well, the millennial reign must have passed 1,000 years ago, and we would be in this other period. And they have explanations about that. They will tell you that, well, the millennial reign was the first 1,000 years. Jesus ushered the kingdom in at the cross, and the church was set up in that first 1,000 years. And then, of course, it says in the book of Revelation that after the millennial reign of 1,000 years of Christ reigning, that Satan will be unleashed and will be a battle for another 1,000 years. And they'll tell you, yes, well, the millennial reign happened at the cross. It started, and when it lasted 1,000 years, the church was set up, and then we ran into all this corruption that you'll see as the Reformation had started to, just gain its beginnings around 1000 AD. It didn't happen really in full force until, Luther nailed the 95 whatever contentions to the door at Wittenberg, the church at Wittenberg in 1520, I believe it was. But there had been Reformation movements started around 1000 AD, and so then you have the breakdown of the church with the Reformation, and then we see Satan in full force now, in the battle, and this will all end with the second coming, which. There's all kinds of problems with that too, if you ask me as a future. So I'm like, no.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm not following that at all.
That's what they'll tell you, though. And it's weird. I mean, so now we're all actually preterists when it comes down to it, because most of us futurists do believe that many of the prophecies, especially in Matthew 24 and in Revelation, were fulfilled in 70 AD. But we also believe in dual fulfillment, and cyclical.
Yes, exactly.
Fulfillment. A lot of these things did happen around 70 AD. Not all of them, but obviously, I mean, if you ask me, there's no way. There's just no way. I mean, futurism is the only way to make sense of anything. I totally reject preterism, but.
Right. So you had this co-host, and he was a preterist.
Yeah. I'm like, wait a minute. And so, then I'll come to find out that not only is he a preterist, but he's a big fan of Augustine. And Augustine came along around the year 300. Geez, these guys are probably going to nail me if I don't have the date exactly right. But he took the Bible. Basically, he's like practically the biggest influence on the church, of all the church fathers. Augustine came along and took a lot of the supernatural elements out of biblical interpretation, and really saw a lot of it as allegory. He was the first to reject Genesis 6, the way we see it, with the angels coming down and seeing the daughters of men were beautiful and having, marrying them and having giant babies. Now we believe that, me and you and Basil, right?
Right.
or me, Basil, and you, depending on which one of you I'm talking to. Anyway, what's up? Anyway, so he's like into Augustine, where everything's allegory in Genesis 6, which is nothing but the sons of Seth, and all that, right? And so all of a sudden, me and Rick, we find out that we're majorly opposed on stuff. But then we start reaching out to the wicked sinner, and we find out that we are like we're like a deadly combination, reaching out to the wicked. And we both believe in once saved, always saved. We both have a good grasp on the concept of grace and the mercy of Jesus and the divinity, all the core doctrine that really makes you want to bond with another Christian. So we thought, well, let's just keep doing this anyway. Maybe we disagree with all this other stuff. And it's easier said than done, because we got into these battles. When we had these, Rick was sitting there snickering and laughing at L.A. Marzulli on Iron Show.
Gosh.
Background, you can hear him going, what a load up. I'm like, oh no. And he gets all snidely with Pastor Lynn, and that's what I call him, L.A. Marzulli.
Yeah.
And that was a nightmare. And then Rick is like, he's like, I quit. And then we get back together, do another show, and he's, I quit. Then he's like, why don't we get a guest on that I want to talk to? I'm like, okay, cool. Well, go get one. Right. So he gets his friend who is into prophecy even. I don't know. I mean, it's like he's like a futurist. Right. But Rick really likes him. So I guess, Rick is like one of those guys, like if you're Ted Bundy, but if Rick likes you, you're all right. So he gets this guest on, right? And we're getting into it. And pretty soon Rick starts getting really mad. And finally by in the middle of the show, he says, this is a bunch of guys. He hangs up on his own guest.
No.
Me and his guest are hanging out there, and his guest, what happened to Rick? I go, dude, he hang up on us.
Oh, no.
He just hung up on us, man. He's like, really? What, did I offend him? I was like, yeah, totally, man. You're totally offensive to Rick.
Oh my God.
So, but anyway, even despite that, Rick, he still keeps coming back. We still do sessions. There's some sessions that he is so much opposed to that I just do them without him. But then we come back, every once in a while we'll come back, and me and Rick will get down into some deep core theology, on the Iron Show, and talk about the stuff that really, core doctrine. It's really all that really matters when you're talking about either going to hell or going to heaven.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I wanted to ask you, because you brought up earlier about your little theory about the phrase born again. What did you mean by that? I'm curious now that you kind of mentioned that.
Oh yeah. I have this really offensive phrase. Offensive. I have this really offensive doctrine on born again. And I've been shot down by like everybody. I even called up Fizzy Boy, Tom Bionic. I call him Fizzy Boy. Like, Fizzy Boy, man, I gotta run something bad. He's like, what's up, man? I go, oh, I get this really offensive doctrine I invented in my head, and I wanted to run it past you because, like, I really think it's true. And he's like, hold on, go ahead, man, run it past me. Pretty soon he's yelling, blasphemy! Get Satan! No. No, he's like, no, dude, no, I don't think so, man. It's like, no, he's shot me down. And so, but I get on this new Iron Show, and I thought, you know what? I want to be shot down seriously. I want to be shot. I want to be shot down by somebody who's really qualified to just bury me, so that I can't get out of it. And Matthew Miller, I ran it past Matthew Miller, and he agreed with me. He actually had my back. And I was like, I was speechless. We had to, I just said, dude, let's come back in like 5 minutes because I can't speak and stuff. Anyway, this is my idea. When Nicodemus came to Jesus, and he's like, we know that you're a teacher from God, because nobody could do all these things unless he's from God. And Jesus. Jesus says, flesh and blood cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. You must be born again. And I really think that first of all, I have to say that this is nothing against regeneration, because regeneration, when you go through the sinner's prayer and your eyes are open and your soul is saved, I mean, that you've been regenerated. You're a new creature and all this stuff. But when Jesus said born again, I really do think he was talking about the resurrection body. I really do believe that. I think that, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think that's that crazy. I mean,
No. Yeah, that doesn't sound. That's not the craziest thing I've heard, for sure.
Because just before it, he said that flesh and blood cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. He says, marvel not, you must be born again. I take that. I'm a literalist.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I actually said that without stumbling. I have a terrible time saying literalist, but that's what I am. I mean, I take a lot of the Bible literally. And, I think he was being real literal when he said that you must be born again to enter the kingdom of heaven. I think he's literally born again. You're born like into this flesh. You have your resurrection body. You're born into a completely different body that can see the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah.
I think he was.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to repeat myself like I want to do.
Well, I was just going to say that it makes sense, because I sort of think that the word born again, the phrase anyway, has been used as synonymously with kind of like a regeneration type thing anyway. And then when you think about, I've talked to some people that say that, we're born again, we are new creations, kind of like how I think Paul says. But then, that's sort of just like a down payment. It's sort of like, you're sealed, and then the actual physical act of becoming, be given our immortal bodies and stuff like that, that's a future event. So it sounds to me like it's just sort of a semantics issue more than a actual doctrine issue,
Right. Yeah. And I was thinking along those lines, and I was listening to Doug Hamp, which has a show on fringeradionetwork.com. I can't say the name of his show.
It's like through the scriptures or something.
Yeah. You can't either.
I can't either. He's afraid he's going to hate me now.
Oh, you don't even win a lousy copy of our home game.
Well, what's funny is I tried to call into the show the other day and I got hung up on. So, I mean, I don't know if that's...
Oh, man, that's just like... Well, that is a raw deal, man, because, like, you're bro.
According to Scripture.
According to the Scriptures.
Yeah, there you go.
With Doug Hamp. It's on fringeradionetwork.com if anybody wants to check it out. I listen to that show religiously. And what he was talking about, the seed, he was talking about the seed concept, that he's got. And anyway, he says that in John 9, I had not run across, I've gone through the whole Bible 3 times, but somehow I don't remember this passage. But he said in John 9, it says that if we having been born again can no longer sin, for the seed of God is within us. Right. And I was thinking, wait a minute, I'm regenerated, I'm saved, but yeah, you could possibly drag me into a room full of cocaine and Mexican girls, and I wouldn't want to leave. What's that?
Your examples are just so vivid and poetic, and I want to affirm you in that and tell you that I appreciate that.
This guy came up to me at this conference. He goes, "Hey, you're Johnny from the Iron Show." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Dude, man," I was like, he got saved listening to the Iron Show. And he's like, "Dude, man, oh man, I remember when I was waiting tables and you're like started saying, you said, what if I'm in a room full of Mexican girls and cocaine and I don't want to leave? How do I become a Christian?" He goes, "I laughed so hard." He goes, "I dropped my tray of water all over the customers and stuff."
Oh my God.
I was like, yeah, that's my idea of sin. I don't know how else to say it,
I mean, it is a really thorough example of sin. I will give you that.
I think it is. And, yes, we all run into that in our lifetime.
It's part of our fallen nature to just find ourselves in these situations with cocaine and Mexican hookers.
I know it, and but actually that's never happened to me. But in my mind. So anyway, and that can be just as bad sometimes. But when Doug Hamp said, he was quoted that verse in John 9 about how that having been born again, we will no longer be able to sin because the seed of God is in us. I was like, Eureka! There's my proof text.
Right.
Right? Because we know we can sin. Obviously, it can happen. I mean, we're not planning on it, but it could happen. If we're saved, we can sin. I mean,
all the time.
Right. So there was my proof text for my little theory about born again, meaning the resurrection body, because apparently, according to what I understand from theology, is once you're in that resurrection body, you literally will not be sinning again ever.
Right. It kind of reminds me of sort of the hell doctrine, and I've tried to sort of parse through hell and try to understand exactly what hell is. And, the common, sort of eternal fire type hell is like, oh, you're going to hell when you die. And there's different theories of like, well, ultimately, yes, but not, not immediately. It's not, I don't know. It just seems like this, we don't know, there's not like this linear, we're just so used to thinking linearly that, one thing happens and then the next thing happens and then, whatever, eternity in hell or in heaven. But it seems like the scriptures kind of jump all over the place and it's not so straightforward. But yeah, I don't think you're that crazy, man. I don't think that's a crazy theory. I mean, I would have to look into it a little more, but it doesn't sound to me like some kind of super heretical thing.
Yeah, and I'm not dogmatic on it. I don't get dogmatic on these things that I kick around in my head. Another one about hanging out, because of hanging out with Peter Goodgame. He's a good buddy of mine. And, I've come up with my own theory on the Antichrist, which is different than his.
Let's hear it.
He's probably right. I mean, he's Peter Goodgame. But, Johnny, he doesn't just say, what's up? He actually thinks about things. So, yeah, my theory on the Antichrist is kind of really got slapped together haphazardly over experiences and friendships I got. And, the first comes from Peter Goodgame quoting all these Bible verses about the Assyrian. And I don't know if you've heard of that, about that the Antichrist is also, and Matthew Miller also when he talks about the Antichrist, he talks about the Assyrian.
Right.
And so that the Antichrist is known as the Assyrian in the Old Testament. You guys know about that?
Yes.
Okay, well, now I was doing a show that I used to have another show called Armed with Iron, which is with my co-host Army Girl. We did that for about a year. It was a live show. And I think we did about 20 shows. But anyway, one of my guests was a rabbi. He's a Messianic rabbi. He's a Christian pastor, and he's also an ordained rabbi also. And he's a Messianic Jew, I guess you would say.
Right.
But he's a Messianic rabbi. So, I mean, he really knows his stuff. He wrote a book about Revelations, or the Revelation called When the Stars Fall. And but anyway, he was on the show Armed with Iron, and he was saying, about the passages in the Old Testament about the Assyrian. I was like, yeah. And he's going like, it seems like the Bible is the Old Testament is saying, he calls it the Torah, right?
Right.
And I mean, he was saying that, that it seems to be pointing to the Antichrist as being the Assyrian. It's like, I'm familiar with that concept, And he's like, well, he goes, I think maybe the Antichrist might be an Assyrian. And I was like thinking, well, the Assyrians died like a million years ago. There's no such thing as an Assyrian. modern Assyrian. And he says, the Assyrians are actually still exist. I was like, really? He's going, yeah, they live in Iran on the border, with the Kurds. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. He goes, I think maybe the Antichrist will be an Assyrian. So I ran that past my atheist friend who he's like my best friend. I hate to tell you, my best friend's an atheist. I mean, what? Go figure.
It happens.
Yeah, it happens. His name is Ayatollah Kazemzadeh. He's Iranian, and he grew up in Tehran, and he lived under the Shah when he was a little kid, and then when the Ayatollah took over, he lived under his reign for about 10 years, and then his dad was wasn't rich, but was fairly well off, and was able to smuggle him out in the trunk of a Mercedes Benz for $17,000. But wow. Yeah, but Ayatollah, man, we were talking about, my show and stuff, and he was talking like, well, what are you talking about? I was like, well, lately I've been talking about the Antichrist, and he's saying the Antichrist. I was going, yeah, well, then, in theology in the Bible, there's this arch nemesis of Jesus who is the opposite of him that will come into power in the last days in the end times, and the times I think we're living in now. And anyway, and he's going, well, tell me more about it. And so I started, and then I said the word Assyrian. He goes, Assyrian? He goes, oh, I grew up with Assyrians. He goes, they protected me when I was in school. I was like, really? He's going, oh, yeah. He's going, he was Baha'i. You guys know what Baha'is are?
Yeah, I do.
They're sort of like, they combine all the religions into one really half religion, which is kind of limp.
Right.
But, it's pretty weak, but they're sort of like, the Baha'is are sort of like, the guy that says to the Zen Buddhist hot dog vendor, make me one with everything. Anyway, so he was like, yeah, he goes like, when you are a Baha'i or you're a Christian or like an atheist or an agnostic in Tehran under the Shah, in school, you get beat mercilessly by all the Muslim kids. He's going, it's like a nightmare. He's going, anyway, and that would have happened because I would have been dead. They would have beaten me to death, except for I had 2 Assyrian buddies that everybody respected and protected me the whole time I was in school. So he starts telling me about the Assyrians. I was going, like, I didn't even think they really existed anymore. He goes, oh yeah. He goes, yeah, they have a neighborhood in Tehran, and they have a big group of them near the Kurdish border in Iran. And he goes, yeah. He says the Assyrians. He goes, you have to understand, Johnny. He goes, when you're born as an Assyrian, you're born Christian, and to us, we would say, well, that's not theologically sound,
right?
So nobody's born as a Christian, but anyway. He's going like, when you're born into a Syrian family, if you're a Christian, and it's just synonymous. If you're an Assyrian, you're a Christian, and to everybody else, all the Muslims and everybody else in Iran, if you're Assyrian, you're a Christian, and not only are you a Christian, but you are Orthodox Christian, and not only are you the Orthodox Christian, but if you were an Assyrian and by some strange fluke, which never happens, you decided to become a Muslim or to become a Hindu or to become whatever, a Baha'i, then what would happen is your family would completely disown you. You would no longer be an Assyrian anymore because your family would wipe all records of you out. Not only that, but your life would be in danger from them. They may kill you in order to keep you from leaving the Christian faith, which is very interesting. I've never heard of a group of Christians killing you if you leave, like the mafia.
Right.
But anyway, he's saying, but what really got me, this is kind of a long way, but what really got me was he's like, well, what happens is that I was like, well, don't the Assyrians, aren't they persecuted? They're Christians living in Iran under the Ayatollah. He's like, oh no. He goes, oh no, all Muslims respect Assyrians. They're Christians. He goes, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you're an Assyrian, you're respected by all Muslims.
Huh.
I was like, really? Like accepted? Oh yeah, you're accepted 100%. In fact, according to Muslim law, Sharia law, alcohol is illegal, but in the Assyrian communities, it's legal. They don't mess with them. They don't. No Sharia law applies in the Assyrian community.
Wow.
I would fight with each other. Oh no, because the Assyrians are the original Iranians. They're the ones that are related to Ashuri. I said, Ashuri, you mean Asher? He's like, yeah. Well, we call him Ashuri.
Wow.
Asher, I go, that's Nimrod. He's like, yeah, Nimrod, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, here's what's interesting. I was just doing, I'm pulling up a little thing on the Assyrians, and this little thing that talks about the diaspora of the Assyrians, and it says a total of 550,000 Assyrians live in Europe, and large Assyrian, Chaldean, Syriac diaspora communities can be found in Germany, Sweden, and the U.S. and Australia. And the largest diaspora communities are those of, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Sodatarche or something, Chicago and Detroit, ironically.
Yes.
And
the second largest in America is in California. Hey, man, West Coast, buddy.
oh,
Yes.
that's our stomping grounds.
It is. It's a little north of you. It's between San Francisco and LA, but
I
yeah.
haven't seen any Assyrians.
There is a 50,000 number strong Assyrian group in Central California, yes.
I think I've heard that before.
I can't say the name of the town, but they own it. Oh, man. I wish Aniotola was here. He could tell me right off the bat. But, yeah. Yes, the Antichrist comes from California. Wouldn't surprise me a bit.
Yeah, I think we're all expecting something like that at least.
We all have first Californication or raiders in the Bible there. Oh, no, that's Corinthians. I'm sorry. First Californians.
San Joaquin Valley?
Perhaps. I can't tell you the name of the city though.
That's San Jose or something.
Yeah, it's like San Jose.
Oh, it's a little town that I would know it if you said it, but I can't. But it's on the tip of my tongue. But anyway. So the thing, okay, this became part of my theory. I was like, okay, wow, okay, yeah, the Antichrist, he's probably going to be an Assyrian. I was like, well, okay, there's a number of things that would have to happen. So anyway, as an Assyrian, they're Orthodox. Now, the Orthodox Church is accepted by the Catholic Church.
Right.
And the Assyrians are accepted by the entire Muslim world.
Yeah.
So this would be the basis of somebody in the center that everybody accepted. Us Christians in the West accept the Orthodox, the Catholics accept the Orthodox, and the Muslims accept the Assyrian Orthodox. So if an Assyrian came into power, he would be the only one that could unite all the religions.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
They are the only ones that all three major groups of religions accept.
And he's related to Nimrod.
And he's related to Nimrod. Bingo. Another thing that's really weird. Now, this is just kind of an aside to the major theory, which I just gave you. But an Assyrian is Aniotola told me that they're extremely talented at language, and when you are talking to an Assyrian in Farsi, they have their own dialect, but when they're speaking Farsi, which is the Iranian, Muslim dialect, you can't tell that you're talking to an Assyrian because they are so good at imitating all the little accents, and they're so good at getting all the little words right. You cannot tell you're talking to a Assyrian. You think you're talking to like another Muslim Farsi speaking person. Not only that, but it extends boundaries past that. If you're in France and you're talking to an Assyrian, you do not know you're talking to a Assyrian. You think you're talking to a Frenchman. They are so good and have so much pride at languages. And most Assyrians speak like 20 languages. And not only that, but they speak them fluently. Not only that, they speak them with their right dialect. And not only that, but they speak them with perfect inflections and accents. And I was just thinking, at the Tower of Babel, Assyria was the land of Nimrod, and that core group must have needed when there was the division of the languages. The Assyrians especially must have had to be very good at linguistics,
Right.
in an effort to try to maybe reunite, try to hold some of that together that was flying apart when God divided the languages.
Wow.
And maybe that's something that's been passed down until current day, to where they're linguistic experts, all of them.
Wow. That's pretty heavy. That's see, I never knew any of that actually.
Me neither. I mean, before I hung out, I was just amazed because Antichrist, he never told me much about his homeland. And man, I was just like, all these wheels are clicking as he's telling me everything about the Assyrians. Not only that, but they're very talented. They're very charismatic. If you're an Assyrian, most likely you're famous, or in a public group, you're the life of the party, or you're one person who is the leader of a company. But there's very few Assyrians, according to Antichrist, back in Iran, that are not big people, because they're all very charismatic, and they have a lot of pride in being charismatic and attracting people to them. So that fits the Antichrist, thing. He's obviously going to be extremely charismatic.
Right. I'm looking at the Assyrian flag, and it's got this 4-pronged star type thing, and it's got these sort of wiggly red, white, and blue stripes coming off of it. But on top of it, there is a picture of, I guess it's Nimrod. I mean, it has to be Nimrod, or someone that looks like somebody from, ancient past. He's got the beard and everything, and he's sort of to the side, and he's got it looks like the phoenix wings kind of behind him, and then the feathers below him, and I don't know, man. It looks pretty intense.
Right. Yeah. No, that's definitely Nimrod there.
Yeah.
With the phoenix behind him doing something.
Yeah. I did a little research into the Assyrians. I wanted to get one on my show. I wanted to get one on the Iron Show, and drill him. Do you know the Antichrist? Have you ever spoken with him?
What are your plans?
What are your plans? What are your plans for world domination? But what's up? But anyway, in the course of my research, I had unearthed this plan of the new Persian Empire. They want to reunite all the diaspora of the Persian people into a secular empire. They want to take it back from the Muslims. They want to take the whole Middle East and further. I mean, the Persians go way out there as far as geographically. They want to take that all back from the Muslims. And there's this underground of the new United Persian Empire that's forming. It's hard to find info on it, but I asked, I took it to Anatolia, I said, hey, what do you know about the underground Persian empires? Like, how did you know about this? Dude, whoa. Whoa, easy. If he's going, oh yeah, we're taking it back. He goes like, we're taking it back from the Muslims. Don't tell anybody.
Well, it kind of makes sense too, because Israel being sort of the the land that God kind of works with, and the diaspora, I guess, at least of the Jews, and then the return of the nation of Israel, it would only make sense that there is some sort of mirror of that for the Antichrist.
Oh yeah, totally. Now, that all is just I kind of have sort of abandoned that whole theory, just because I sort of like Peter Good games where they dig him up really and he comes back to life.
Right.
Yeah. I wonder about that too, because the Antichrist, the world marvels at the Antichrist. So It may be something incredibly. Peter Goodgame's probably the one who was right. I mean I don't know, but at the same time, he could proclaim to be an Assyrian. I mean, that may be how he gets us. It could be Nimrod coming back to life, just like Peter Goodgame says, and it probably is going to be that way. And then he claims to be an Assyrian. He claims to be an Orthodox Assyrian, claims to be a Christian. Now, a lot of people, it's very unpopular when I say this, but I will tell you straight out, the Antichrist is a Christian.
Oh, yeah. I'm not against that or surprised by that at all. I think that's part of the whole apostasy, the falling away.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he's a watered down Christian, but man, I mean, anybody will tell you when they see him, when he's on the scene, he's a Christian.
Right.
I mean, you will think he will be synonymous with Christian. He will represent Christianity, even though to us, on the out, on the inner, in the inner, no, I hate to think of Johnny as one of the elect, but even to the elect, like you and I and everybody listening, we will know that he's no Christian. But I mean, to the rest of the world, man, he's going to be a Christian.
Right. Well, I was going back to just the point of Peter Goodgame saying that it's going to be a literal resurrection of Nimrod. Interestingly, Doug Hamp thinks that somebody is going to, interject. He calls it Satan's DNA, but I'm thinking maybe, because they've found quote unquote Gilgamesh's tomb and Osiris's tomb and stuff like that. What if it's kind of like in between where they sort of resurrect, there's a resurrection, but it's actually like, no, we actually got the DNA and reformed, this guy, this is an ancient person's DNA, but it's, here he is, we've cloned him or whatever. I don't know, something, I don't know. I guess we'll never know until it happens, but at the same time, I think it's good to talk about all the potential angles.
Explore the possibilities. Yeah.
Yeah, explore the possibilities because, I mean, when this thing goes down, everybody listening to this Canary Cry Radio back in history will have heard it and will, be forearmed because they're going to know what to look for. I mean, that's why it's important to talk about this stuff.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we always say here.
Yeah, totally.
I have a couple of questions for you guys.
Uh-oh.
Number one, Basil.
Yo.
Why did you name yourself after a pizza spice? And my wife wants to know, why isn't it basil?
Well, basil
Yeah.
and basil are the same thing, but basil is sort of the European pronunciation of the name Basil.
Ah,
a male version.
it's very nice.
Yes, I believe it. I believe it speaks to my character as a nice herb to place on margarita pizza, as well as other tomato sauces and things like that.
My question to Gani, you're Japanese, right?
Yes.
Does it bother you that they measure every big thing with the force of so many Hiroshima bombs? Like Krakatoa exploded with a force of 20,000 Hiroshima bombs. That would bother me. That
Johnny.
would bother me if I was Japanese.
He's very sensitive, and
No, I'm not.
brought that up.
Does that bother you?
No, not really. I mean, okay, here's the deal.
He likes it a lot, actually.
I think it's hysterical. No. There's definitely a little disconnect with, my home nation, I guess you can call it, because, I was born in America. So it's kind of like, I'm American because I'm born in America. I've been to Japan a few times and stuff. There's definitely a void of like, okay, I don't really know my family history. I don't know, I know that my mother's side comes from a samurai family. We bear kind of the what's the thing called? The family emblem of a samurai tribe. So I know that much, but I have no idea who they are or what happened or anything. And then, I don't think I had specifically relatives that were, taken out by the bombs or anything like that. So, and it's weird. It's a weird thing because
they were off roaming the Japanese countryside as samurais.
Yeah. At some point, I'm sure.
Sharpening their swords. Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of the things that I do want to do sometime in life is actually address some of the spiritual issues in Japan, because Japan's kind of a dark place. It's really like it's very materialistic. It's very like work oriented.
Number one suicide rate in the world.
Yeah, they're just totally worked to the ground, and a lot of their anime and cartoons and imagery and stuff like that. It's always like demons and ghosts and these supernatural creatures. They're really into the supernatural, but I think spiritually they're sort of misplaced. And so, there's a part of me that wants to go that direction, but it's going to be tough, man, because it's sort of a big subject. I'm kind of trying to tackle a nation here. So it'll happen maybe sometime in the future, but I'm not offended, Johnny. Don't worry.
I'm offended by that. It bothers me. It's like, man, why do you have to dig up that stuff? Oh man, couldn't you just say atomic bombs? I mean, every time, you watch the History Channel, 20,000 Hiroshima bombs. Like, and what about the dudes in Nagasaki? They're like, dude, I got my grandpa has 3 legs. And what about Nagasaki? You don't even mention them. What's up with them?
There's a local, it's actually, I think nationwide, but there's a Japanese channel here that my wife likes to watch whenever there's, captions and stuff. But they've been putting out these movie DVD series of interviewing World War II veterans that fought for America, but were Japanese. And man, every time they show it, it's like, oh, dude, I got to sit there and watch this commercial again, because it's heavy. They're sitting there talking about, these old guys talking about like, why should I have to go attack my own country? And other guys talking about, I'm defending my nation. It's just heavy stuff. And so, yeah, I know that, there's a history there and stuff, but again, there's a little bit of a disconnect because I was born in America, not just America. I was born in Southern California. So, it's kind of like, hey, surf's up, so.
Yeah. In Oregon, Oregon is the only country Oregon was the only state that it was ever attacked in World War II. We were bombed at Battery Russell. We were shelled. Bombed and they also dropped, the Japanese dropped incendiary bombs in the forests of Oregon, hoping to just set all these forest fires and smoke us out. But
wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, and we just had this in Portland. We had this big reunion of these Japanese soldiers that bombed the Oregon coast, and the incendiary bomb pilots. They got together with World War II vets, American World War II vets, and came together and buried the sword, and hugged each other. And I thought, man, that's great. That it's just and Japan came they were one of the first ones after 9/11 that came to our support, and
it's so weird because they have their sort of temperament. They have a really, really good honor system. They're very serious about honor and just being good people and being good to each other. It's just very strange to me because, you heard about, I was hearing stories after the tsunami and the whole thing that happened last year about, people finding, tons of cash and wallets and stuff like that. And they're giving it back to the authorities or trying to find the people that it belongs to and stuff. And I'm like, man, if that happened in America,
dude. Although I will say I've had my wallet returned to me about 3 or 4 times in the last 2 years. So, yeah, thank God we still got some of that in America. But yeah, you're right. Muslim wallets, their history, they're just like cash is ripped out. Everything else is thrown into the wind, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Except when they see the ID and they're like, "Oh crap, this is Johnny Irons. We're busted."
I'm giving this back. I'm scared. Yeah, Peter Goodgame on one of those shows goes, Johnny, you're not really intimidating. I'm like, yeah, thanks, Pete.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. So, again, Johnny Iron, the legendary one and only Johnny Iron from The Iron Show. Thank you so much for coming on Canary Cry Radio. It was a lot of fun for sure.
All right, man. It's been real. I hope to hang out with you guys again, man.
For sure.
Definitely. And we'll have to make our own appearance over there and spread the Canary Cry love.
Open invitation. All right. On the bird. I love the bird. Johnny loves the bird. I'm going to put it on my tombstone. Johnny loves the bird.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for tuning in again. Oh, gosh. Thanks for tuning in again this week for Canary Cry Radio. Make sure to check back soon for more. And as always, think outside the cage. Boom.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Canary Cry Radio. The show notes for this episode and many others are available at canarycryradio.com. Make sure to connect and like our Facebook page at facebook.com/canarycryradio. Follow us on Twitter at Canary Cry Radio. If you would like to share the show in video format, you can find us on YouTube by searching Canary Cry Radio. Review us on iTunes with 5 stars and give us a thumbs up on stumbleupon.com. We would like to thank those of you who have given us your support, prayers, and donations. If you would like to join us and support Canary Cry Radio financially, you could do so by visiting canarycryradio.com and clicking the support tab. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, remember to think outside the cage.